Rabbi Ruhi, Sophia, Motzkin, Rubenstein is a recent graduate of the Reconstructionist Rabbinical College and is the new rabbi here at Temple Beth Israel, here in Eugene. She did her undergraduate work at Smith College and is the daughter and granddaughter of Reform rabbis. While studying at the Rabbinical College, she served at our country's largest LGBTQ synagogue in New York City. Please welcome my friend and my rabbi, Ruhi Sophia.
Thank you all for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and it looks like you have an amazing program. So I'm going to start with a little bit of my personal history. It's funny that Marshall, when he was introducing these CADRE talks, said that we all had some powerful truth to share, and my remarks are on the nature of truth. I was brought up in one of the most egalitarian homes that I have ever encountered to this day. Certainly one of the most egalitarian heterosexual parented homes. My parents share their career as co-rabbis of the same Reform Jewish synagogue, and they have for the past almost 30 years. Throughout my childhood, they switched off leading worship, switched off childcare duties, cooking, cleaning, and they raised me to believe that women could do anything and that there was no essential difference between women and men. And if I accepted anything as completely axiomatic truth, it was feminism's assertion that the exact same opportunities should be open to women as to men. And I still identify as a feminist. I call out microaggressions against women all the time. My profession is the rabbinate, which is a vocation of religious service that has only formally been open to women in the past half a century. And as Phil mentioned, I served in a 2-year internship in actually the world's largest LGBTQ synagogue in New York, and I'm fairly well convinced that sex is a continuum and that gender is a construct. And I tend not to have patience for discourse that essentializes between men and women, let alone discourse that prescribes different roles for different genders. And I know a man who is an Orthodox Jew. In his religious framework, there are real and key differences between the genders. There are ritual roles that only women are empowered to play, such as lighting holiday candles or managing the ritual implications of their menstrual cycles. Yes, and because Judaism evolved throughout most of its history in a patriarchal context, there are vastly more ritual roles that only men are entitled to play. And this fellow that I know acknowledges that Judaism is patriarchal, but he's also committed to halakha, which is Jewish law as defined by the past 2,000 plus years of Jewish history. And so he will not pray in a group in which women are counted in the quorum for prayer. I find this completely offensive. I was taught as a child that Orthodox Judaism's distinct roles for men and women were sexist and outdated, and so I argue a lot with this fellow. In fact, from the very first few weeks we knew each other, we have argued about gender and Judaism. And the strange thing is, I have loved these arguments. The first few times I argued with this man about Judaism, I couldn't believe how happy I felt after each of these arguments. And as I reflected on what was happening, I realized that even though we disagreed, I was really touched by how deeply he strove to understand and respect my experience while holding firmly and unapologetically to his own. His commitment to earnest, respectful dialogue actually brought out the same in me, and our arguments were making me a better person. I figured that since the arguing was this good, I'd better make sure it kept happening, so he and I have been married for the past several years. Some of you have met my husband, Jacob. We still argue, and I still feel like no one respects me more or sees me better than Jacob. And still, as an Orthodox Jew, Jacob does not believe that the services that I lead at Temple Beth Israel actually fulfill a Jewish obligation to pray, and there's many reasons for this. We leave out too many of the words. We use musical instruments during times when, according to Jewish law, they are forbidden. And of course, a woman, his wife, is leading the service. And yet, Jacob is always there by the end of services to participate in what Jews would call oneg and Christians would call coffee hour. He cares about the members of the community I serve, often reminding me of their names and their health troubles. He prepares dishes to contribute to potlucks where he can't eat because the kitchen isn't kosher. And he's excited to be living in Eugene and committed. He has a feminist commitment to supporting me in doing my job as well as possible. For my part, I still cannot intellectually abide a system that imposes gender-based segregation, but thanks to Jacob, I treasure the sense of devotion and mutual responsibility that I see in Orthodox Jewish community. And even if I didn't, I want my husband to have the community that nourishes him and his spiritual needs. My hypothetical ideology becomes pretty irrelevant next to my desire for his happiness. And one of the great gifts of my relationship with Jacob is that I've learned how it's possible for different truths to coexist in productive tension. In our society, we're often afraid of conflict. We tend to equate conflict with violence, and we see the absence of conflict as an ideal state. But some of our best growth comes through conflict. And I'm going to go into a foray into Jewish tradition. I hope you will find it edifying. I am a rabbi. I hope you knew that when you invited me. The essential Jewish text, the Talmud, is basically a record of arguments about Jewish law, extending over several centuries from about the year 70 to about 550. In the Talmud, all viewpoints are covered and preserved. There is an idea that to argue with respect and conviction, with all in the argument in pursuit of refining the truth, is a godly pursuit. Arguing is a godly pursuit. And in a very famous episode in the Talmud, in Tractate Eruvin, page 13b for those who want to look it up, there's a description of how for years and years, two major schools of Jewish thought, the school of Hillel and the school of Shammai, argued about the correct application of many, many Jewish laws. And finally, the argument was resolved when a voice called out from heaven. It should happen so easily for all of us. This voice announced from heaven, the utterances of both schools are the true words of the living God. However, the voice continued, the law is in agreement with the rulings of the school of Hillel. So how can this be? They're both the true words of the living God. And if that's the case, why would the law be fixed only according to one school? And the Talmud answers, the law was fixed according to the interpretation of the school of Hillel because they were kindly and modest. They studied their own rulings as well as presenting the rulings of the school of Shammai. And they were even so humble as to always teach the actions of the school of Shammai and to praise the actions of the school of Shammai before mentioning their own. So this episode in the Talmud suggests that sometimes it is more effective to persuade by being kind than by being right. And shocking as this may seem, although you actually don't look so shocked, it's not really that surprising. People ignore correct facts all the time. And in his book, The Righteous Mind, Why Good People Are Divided by Politics and Religion, Moral psychologist Jonathan Haidt argues that our moral intuition, rather than our rational thinking, guides most of our opinions on key issues in our own lives and in larger political life. And our moral intuition is developed really young, and it's really impervious to facts most of the time. But this moral intuition is really malleable in the face of new experiences, and particularly in the face of sympathetic encounters with the other, whoever that may be. I could not have come to relax my own early conditioned negative feelings about Orthodox Judaism by reading sociological research about how healthy Orthodox Jewish communities are. Only through the give and take of respectful, even loving argument have I been able to make space for Orthodoxy to coexist in my home with my militant egalitarianism. So inspired in part by this, I've lately been trying to make more space for conflict, for dynamic tension in my life, in my community, and just think, like, what would it feel like to say to yourself, conflict is good. I need more conflict in my life. I've been experimenting with that perspective. I've been trying to create spaces where people can argue about all sorts of things: the existence and nature of God, the essence of Judaism, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, to name a few of the low-hanging fruits. But instead of the usual kind of argument, where each side tries to make the other look or feel stupid, I'm trying to create spaces where we can argue in service of the other. I'll repeat that phrase. I want us to make spaces for conflicts in which we are arguing in service of the other, with the hope that by helping the other articulate their position, both sides, or all sides, can gain. Arguing while assuming that we are right and the other is right too, and that there may be greater truth in the world if we can understand how we are all right. So I'll conclude with an old Jewish joke. I wouldn't be surprised if you tell me later that it exists in other cultures as well. So this joke describes two people in a dispute who bring their concern to a rabbi, of course. The rabbi listens to the complaint of the first and declares, "You're right." The rabbi listens to the complaint of the second and says, "You're right." And a third person, eavesdropping on the conversation, pipes up, "Rabbi, they just said opposite things. How can they both be right?" To which the rabbi responds, "You're also right." Thank you.